we're going to be swatching in this Above Ground Art Supply Mixed Media pad. I haven't been doing much watercolor lately, but somebody requested some information about Sennelier, and so I thought I would just take the opportunity and swatch all the colors that I own, which is quite a few. So this is a selection of colors that I own. I feel like there's no rhyme or reason as to why I chose these. I was leaving Europe and I just went into a watercolor haul frenzy and bought a bunch of watercolor paints from different brands. I haven't even used some of these colors really. I have some strange selections like warm sepia, I don't know what I was thinking, and a bunch of oranges, which is odd. I don't have a designated palette for my Sennelier colors. I don't actually think that's necessary, and I have all of these little half pan plastic little things that I bulk purchased, and if I want to add a color to my main palette, I just do it that way. I'll show you what I have. So these are the half pans. I also have full pans, and they're just little plastic cubes, sort of like if you buy a dry half pan in a kit or at the art supply store. It's basically just this little plastic container, and you can fill them yourself. And then I also have these sticky magnetic things, and I just put them on the back, and then that way I can put them into a tin or just any other tin that I have. So this is just a tin from the dollar store, and that works fine, you know? So I haven't done that with the Sennelier colors, except for this little trio of colors. So this is ultramarine blue, vermilion, and Indian yellow, and I really like this combination. I will show you some swatches with this little trio because I think that's a nice mix. But maybe we will just make a little palette in here for now because we got all our supplies out. I am just so tentative about using this because I feel like I'm like not good enough to use this yet. It's almost like too special, but you know, you gotta use it. Don't let it go to waste, right? So one of the unique properties of this paint is that it's made with honey, and this kind of keeps the paint from getting crackly. Like it stays pretty juicy looking even when it's dried. One little tip I can give you is to write on the half pan the color or the brand. That way if you do move them around, then you know what's in there. And you can refill it if you need to as well. It's easier to put these magnetic magnets, this magnet tape on before you fill it, so there's a tip just so it doesn't get so messy. And I just bought these at Walmart in the craft department. They were very affordable. I'm sure you can find them at dollar stores or craft stores. Find them very handy. I haven't filmed in a while and I can feel it. Eventually I'll get my words right. So I'm just gonna put the magnets on. So I guess we're making a DIY palette. And just so you know, I do have a few of these little Muji containers that I use for tiny palettes. Not that I really use them as travel palettes, but I just kind of use them as tiny palettes, you know? It fits 3 full pans and 6 half pans. I love these little guys. Let me know if you'd like to see a Muji container DIY video. I can do that if you'd like to see that. So I guess now we fill them. I'm not going to fill them very full, to be honest, because I just don't want to, I guess. Schminke, like on their Horadam paints, they advertise that they fill them in 3 layers. So maybe it's optimal to fill them in 3 layers if you're gonna fill your pans. And you don't have to do this, you know? You can use it wet, and that might be preferable. There's something satisfying about having these little boxes of color. The phthalo green, I like never use phthalo green. I think I was trying to force myself to use it, by buying a fancy one. But I honestly, like, don't know how to use it. The color offends me a little bit. If you like using phthalo green, tell me like how you like to mix it. Like, what is your favorite mixes with phthalo green? Because I feel like I'm missing out on something. What I find very curious about the collection of colors that I chose is that I only ordered 2 yellows, which is very unlike me. Ultramarine blue is something I took for granted for a really long time, and I was just like, ugh, it's so common, it's so boring, but gosh, is it ever useful. This is a kick-ass color, actually. Don't overlook the tried and true things. There's a reason for them being tried and true. Here's our collection of delicious things, so let's start swatching. Now, I did some selecting of colors depending on if they named it after themselves, because I find if a brand decides to call it, like, by their own name, then it's a special color to them, or maybe it's a color that they have developed. I haven't looked into the history of that, but if you name an orange after yourself, it's got to be a special orange, right? So I did get Sennelier orange. I think I got a Sennelier red. Is that Sennelier red? Yeah, Sennelier red. And I think Sennelier blue, which is actually their phthalo red shade. And when I made this purchase, I was just discovering the wonderful world of pigments, and pigments can like really be distracting because it can get really nerdy, and I find it super interesting and fun, but then you end up collecting colors just because like you want to try different pigments. So be careful, because it's an addiction. I'm not saying don't get into it because I think it's super cool, but the point is to paint, so don't let the collecting of colors distract you from painting. I think I got this Madder Lake red or rose because there is a Madder Lake from Lucas that I love, but it's a completely different color. This is like a for sure. This is a for sure winner for me. This French vermilion, like, yes, get it. It's good. And Payne's Gray, I don't know why I picked up a Payne's Gray. I think I wanted to see what does an expensive Payne's Gray look like, you know? I hope it's good. Otherwise, if it's not, it'll be disappointing because you can get pretty good, cheap Payne's Gray. I attempted to make this neat, but it's still not that neat. But I don't know if this is a hack or not. I just traced one of these hat pans and made 14 squares because that's how many colors I have. And a reminder to have 2 containers of water, one for dirty, one for clean, just to keep your swatches pure. And I apologize if there's a lot of sound. There's construction going on constantly, and everyone can feel that the nice weather is going to end. It's going to be 28 degrees today, but that doesn't mean that in 2 days there could be frost. That's just how it rolls here. So these colors are super saturated, and that is something that you'll notice if you've never used professional colors. If you're going from a student grade color to a professional color, it'll be such an upgrade in the pigment load. Wow, that's really pretty. It's very rose. I kind of want to do a watered down version. I'm gonna break my aesthetic. I feel like that's more informative as far as a swatch goes, to see like how it performs. But it's good to see like what the full potential of the color is. I guess I'm not the kind of person that uses things to their full opacity, I guess. This is so intimidatingly pigmented. It's almost hard to get a wash. This one lifts. Those are things that you might consider when you're doing your own swatch card. Does it lift? How transparent is it? How opaque it is? There are a lot of different properties of watercolor that you can explore. This is Sennelier red. This looks like a cad red because of the granulation. It's quite a deep and on the bluer side. I feel like I've been coming around to red. I've found this vermilion to be a very useful kind of red. It mixes really nicely. It's more on the orange side. Sometimes colors don't look like much when they're swatched, but it's in the mixes where their potential comes out, you know? And this is called red orange. Make sure you wash your brush really well in between swatches, especially with professional colors that can be so pigmented. This color I'm familiar with and I really love. I just find Indian yellow to be so pleasing. It's such a happy color. It's such an easy color to look at. I discovered this kind of like greeny yellow from Mind of Watercolor. I used to watch his channel a lot. It's a really good channel if you like to do watercolor. I mean, I've always been drawn to this kind of color, but I never used it in watercolor before. And not that I know how to use it very well, but I find I gravitate to it more and more. This one is quite on the opaque side, and this is the phthalo green, which is a really nice color. Just don't know. It confuses me. And I think it's also because it's very staining. This is like a very kind of permanent pigment. So once you put it down, it's down. Maybe I've had a bad experience. I think it just looks like it's out of a crayon box, and somehow that confuses me. And this is Payne's Gray. Ooh, it's very blue. I like a bluey Payne's Gray. Wow, it's very dark. Okay, not mad at that. I find Payne's Gray and Sepia are like a good way to tone things down, you know? I like using indigo or Payne's Gray for a cooler dark, and then Sepia for a warmer dark. So this is a warm sepia. Maybe what I wanted is to contrast. Yeah, it's almost like a burnt umber. Prussian blue was probably my first blue love. I went through phases with different blues, and Prussian blue was like a wow moment where I was like, whoa, I had no idea. I had no idea blue could look like this. And so for a while I was obsessed with this color. It's still a really good color. I think indigo has taken its place in my heart. Although you can use them pretty interchangeably. Just might not get as dark. It's a really good blue. Okay, so now we have the two phthalos. So this is phthalo red shade, which can be confusing, but if you think of like cool and warm colors, that's why sometimes the phthalos are labeled like this. And phthalo is a very strong pigment. It's used in a lot of blue mixes. It's nice. And this one, the phthalo red, is what they've labeled Sennelier blue. So this is their brand blue. I like it a lot. And now to contrast, this is the phthalo green shade. So this will be the cooler version. And you can see already, it doesn't get as dark as the phthalo red. It looks very close to one of my favorite colors from Schminke. It's deliciously Smurfy. It's quite a bit of a difference. And then the tried and true ultramarine blue. If you own any Sennelier colors, let us know what are your favorites. I think that people that are watching this video would love to know that information. So please share in the comment section what your favorite Sennelier colors are, or maybe even what your favorite combinations are, because that's also helpful. And ultramarine blue, knocking it out of the park, being its periwinkle self. I think that's the thing that I didn't realize about ultramarine blue, that like it kind of has this purpley quality to it. And see how transparent it is? It's a pretty awesome color. These are them. I'll show you some close-ups in a moment here. Interesting. I'm confused a little bit as to what my decision making was, but I think I was having a spontaneous watercolor meltdown when I purchased these. I think we'll also do a few swatches of this combination just to give you an idea of some. Oh, there's a goldfinch at my window right now and it's very distracting. Okay, well, I think we'll do some close-ups of this, and then we will try some different, maybe 3-color combinations just to show you what you can do. I'm gonna put the little half pans into my tin and try to maintain the order. So tissue always works to like keep things in place. I mean, just keep it simple, guys. This is a very strange setup for me. But I can always move these around later. Look at that, it's cute. Now, I won't get too deep into the pigment stuff, but I just wanted to mention that some people are pigment purists. So what they'll do is they'll select a color, say like the Sennelier orange, to put in their palette because it's one pigment. So it's P073. And it is a series 2. So often the pure pigments can be a little bit expensive. It depends on the pigment and how easy it is to gather or produce. And say, for example, this one is a series 1, so that means it's cheaper. And it is a 3 pigment mix. So either those pigments are cheaper to get, or it's because it's not a pure pigment. But that's not always the case, because this one is a series 3, but it is a 2 pigment mix. So either those pigments are expensive or this is expensive to produce. So that's how the prices vary, because you'll notice that the different series will have different prices. And also, I think it's something that people run into problems with watercolor in particular, because you use it in a transparent fashion, is that sometimes colors get muddy because you have a multi-pigment mix. So say if you had this Payne's Gray, which is 3 pigments, mixed with that red orange, which is 2 pigments, that means there's 5 pigments mixing in that mix. And sometimes that can cause problems. So I just wanted to mention that. I also made a video about reading watercolor labels, so I'll link that in the cards just so you can have that as reference if you want to get a little deeper into that. I know I said I wasn't going to get too deep, but I just wanted to show you that like even the processing can cause a variation, and that's like a very typical phthalo blue, but the phthalo blue red is PB15:6. So I'm not exactly sure what that indicates with the colon, but that variation causes that color shift because it is the same pigment, but there is a certain variation in the processing, I imagine. And processing can also cause a color difference or the source of the pigment itself. I have, I think, a couple PV19s and they don't look like this. So different brands will have the same pigment, but because of the processing or the source of the pigment, you get a slightly different color. So that's why there is some color differences between brands as well. So what I'll do is scan this page and I'll put it on a blog post for those of you that are interested. And I'll have the blog linked in the description below, just so you know. I had previously swatched some primary combinations. This one here is these 3 colors. So that is the color combination that you can get out of it. I feel like I need to remind people that doing this kind of color wheel is only the beginning of the color exploration. It kind of just gives you an indication of range. But then you should continue mixing colors and see what other colors you can make, because beyond these pure colors, there's so much more that you can do. So that is Indian Yellow, Ultramarine Blue, and French Vermilion from Sennelier. And in contrast to that, here are 3 other primary color mixes. And you can see there is a different range of colors. So that's the same one that we had on the previous page. And then this is with, I think, like a phthalo blue and a magenta. And this is with a lemon yellow. And you can see that the greens get a lot brighter. So we'll try a few of these with the colors that I have poured out, just so you can get an idea of some color mixes. When I'm doing these sort of primaries, I like to use a round brush, and then when I'm making swatch cards, I like to use a flat brush. I'm not sure if that's helpful to you, but I'm just letting you know. I do find using the Sennelier wet a little bit tricky because it's so pigmented. I'm gonna use the orange here. What is this one called? Red orange. And that'll be our yellow. It's not really a yellow, but I'm gonna use it as yellow. And then we'll try something different. We'll try the Madder Lake. I think this is gonna be a good color. Ooh, yeah. That's my kind of color. And we'll try it with a Phthalo Red. This is gonna be a very warm palette. Well, maybe not, because that's a pretty cool color. That's like a perfect purple. That's not very green at all, but I might have not had enough orange in there. Very earthy color. I think you'd have to... Interesting. I wish I had more yellows to try. I thought I had more yellows. It's not a very exciting palette, but some pretty colors regardless. The blue is very overpowering. Oh, that's kind of neat. I want to try one with this yellow-green. And then maybe the Sennelier red? I don't know if that's going to be able to... The red is so overtaking it. It's so chalky. I do like it though. Okay, and we'll try the phthalo green shade with this. I really like this phthalo green shade. That maybe has too much red in it. Pretty though. It's like a crayon box green. Weird combinations here. I'm just mixing colors now. That's a nice deep color. Also odd. I really wish I had more true yellows. What was I thinking? What should I try it with? We'll go with Prussian blue and that Rose Madder Lake. Oh, I contaminated it. There's a little bit of Prussian blue in there. I really like me a magenta. This is kind of magenta. It is actually a purple pigment. That's neat. You got a cool red and a cool blue, so that's what's gonna happen there. It's just so pigmented. Yeah, I think I find it challenging to work with it wet because it's so incredibly pigmented. This one's a more kind of traditional palette, so it's kind of easier to work with. Some really nice browns. Just love, like, if you get a warm yellow and a magenta, that's like, if you like coralish colors, mauvey things, that's where the money is. So you can spend ages doing this, but I think it's really helpful if you have a new set of colors to go through the process of playing around, because sometimes you get bored of your colors and you're like, I want something new, but maybe you just haven't found the full potential of the colors that you do own, because the range is like vast, really. If you know of any good color combinations, not necessarily in Sennelier, but just color combinations in general that are not like your traditional primaries, but are something like weirder that you find works really well, share it in the comment section. I'm not very good at color. I'm still learning. I find this so soothing. This is like therapy. You wouldn't think that you could get from there to there, but you know, just keep mixing. It's like gold. That's a nice gray. And you can continue doing this endlessly, and I encourage you to. The value in artist grade pigments is often that a little goes a long way. So the initial purchase is very expensive, but you need so much less to get a real payoff, especially for using it very transparently. If you have a thicker application, then you'll go through it quicker, obviously, but doing watercolors transparently, oh my goodness, you only need a tiny bit to get a lot of color. I hope that's useful if you are in the market for some Sennelier colors. And to the viewer who asked, I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Bye now.